Hello, it's Rashmir here. In this video, I'm going to talk about what happens when we're triggered, and in particular, whether what we think is triggering us is actually what is triggering us. So what do I mean by triggering? Let me start there just in case anybody watching this isn't clear. So when we're triggered, we're essentially in reaction to something. It could be as simple as somebody shouting at us. In most of us, that is going to trigger a reaction. It'll trigger different reactions in different people. Some people, might be relatively unfazed. Others might feel defensive. Some people might respond angrily. Others might, want to cry. There's no rights or wrongs in our responses. It's just how we respond. And usually how we respond is a function of a variety of things, right? The inciting event, so what's happening, the context and the circumstances, and our personalities and our history of responses and reactions in similar sorts of situations, along with all the defense mechanisms that have grown up, or coping strategies that we've evolved since childhood to try and cope with these situations. So there's much at play, even in the simplest circumstances that might trigger us. And that's what's really interesting about getting underneath what is triggering us to find out whether what we think it is actually what it really is. And to make it really concrete, let me give you an example. I received an email a few days ago that had some really interesting content, and some of that was feedback on something that I was doing. And it was really useful feedback, right? Because it led me to have some really rich discussions with people around what was being suggested, and did I or didn't I want to go down that path, and what else might have been at play around that, and the possibilities that opened up. So it was a very rich discussion, and I'm really glad that feedback came in. It's been really helpful, and I think will continue to be something that I think about with some of the programs that I put out into the world. However, what was really interesting was how much I was triggered by this email. So it wasn't the specific, ultimately, I guess what I discovered is it wasn't the specific feedback that I got, although it would have been easy to focus, and some of the people that I was chatting with did overly focus on that piece of feedback, and very interestingly started to make assumptions around what was going on with respect to that feedback, which it's easy to get caught up in. But the truth is, for me, I actually valued the feedback. I found it very useful and very fruitful. So what was triggering me was not the feedback itself. It was something about the tone of the email. Note, however, it was my perceptions of the tone, because email is just one of those classic forms, right? We read so much in to what's being said, which may or may not be there. So some of that could have been in my head rather than part of the intent of the person that sent the email. So whatever I was assuming about the tone, the intent, the attitude, the stance, the implications for our relationship, or how I was being seen, these were the kinds of elements that were actually the things that were really triggering me, right? It's kind of raising my shackles, or, re-triggering, if you like, historic wounds, historic things that have happened that have caused me to feel upset or not seen or disrespected. So it's not always what we think it is that is actually triggering us. And sometimes it just takes a little bit of time, a little bit of space, a little bit of distance to be able to discern and separate, what's useful and what isn't, to get to the underlying triggers. Now, the beauty of this is when we do that, we can then work with that, because if it's coming up and we have some conscious awareness around it, chances are we're ready to heal, we're ready to move on, we're ready to move beyond, those old reactions, those old patterns. And that's a very powerful place to be. So I hope this video has been useful in helping you think about when you're triggered and what to do, but also how to get underneath it and why that is important. If so, please do leave a comment and let me know. I'd love to hear what you take away from this video, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Thanks very much.